Now, the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is an image here that literally shocked everyone, shocked people in Israel, it shocked Benjamin Netanyahu, and it shocked everyone. In this image, we can see one Israeli prisoner who was released. His name is Omer Shem Tov, kissing the heads of two Palestinian freedom fighters. Now, Israel spends billions of dollars to promote their hasbara and propaganda and lies about the Palestinian resistance, about how the people are treated, and they got a very big lesson from the first woman who was released for no exchange, Yocheved Lifshitz, just on a humanitarian basis. The Palestinian resistance wanted to return people without exchange after October the 7th, by the way. And Israel refused. Israel did not want that. It ended up going to Egypt. The Palestinian resistance spoke with Egypt, told them, listen, Israel doesn't want to take these people from us. We want to release them on a humanitarian basis. Can you please take them? Egypt, can you please take them and then pass them to Israel? Because we don't want them. These people shouldn't be here. And then Egypt accepted. The woman went to Israel. She had this press conference. Israel called it a hasbara attack on us against them. Why? Because she revealed the truth. People were nice. They were protecting them. It was Israel that was, bombing them multiple times. Treated with kindness, cared for her hygiene, fighters protecting her with their bodies, even when they're injured, doctors with them, everything. Okay, they said, okay, we have a problem here. Now, of course, Israel already took the decision to kill everyone, including their own, from the beginning. They didn't want to keep anyone alive. Israel wanted to kill every Israeli imprisoned by the Palestinian resistance from the beginning. However, the Palestinian resistance protected them till the last day. And this image here didn't come out of nowhere. This man appreciated how much the Palestinian resistance was protecting him to the highest extents, to the deepest depths of any care that they can give him, protecting him from the Israeli attacks constantly bombarding Gaza for 15 months. It's a miracle that he was alive. He survived by a miracle. But he knows that these people put in so much effort to protect him. And they even risked their lives. Because a third of them were killed. A third of the Israeli prisoners of war in Gaza were killed because of the Israeli bombings. Because the Palestinian resistance kept many of them in apartments, in houses. They let some of them go and have a walk and all sorts. So this man, out of appreciation for the Palestinian resistance fighters and how much they cared for him, he gave them a kiss and he gave them a hug. And it wasn't only one of them, it was two of them. Two of them were kissed by the forehead with this Israeli guy. All right. But the Palestinian resistance sent other messages too. It wasn't only the message of this guy kissing them, which seemed to be something he did out of his own accord. Israel is going to start saying, oh, he was forced to do this, he was forced to act, he was forced to do this and that. He was released at the end of it. There's an agreement. He has to be released, right? No one forced him. He seemed to be smiling and all happy and fine. No one forced him to do that. Again, look at him. But of course, Israel is, they're trying to find explanations now, by the way. It was so hard because this was a knockout from Hamas and from this Israeli prisoner of war against Israel. A massive blow for Benjamin Netanyahu and his propaganda. However, like I said, it wasn't only this image that was the big problem that happened. Alongside this, of course, is what the Palestinian resistance did today when they had the ceremony of the release of the Israeli prisoners of war. So the armed wing of Hamas, Al-Qassam brigades, they released this video here. In this video, we're seeing the Israelis who are about to be released. The people wearing black are the shadow unit of Al-Qassam brigades, people who are, but that's the most special elite unit in Israel. And here, this is the guy that kissed them, telling the Palestinian resistance fighters, about Israel not only killing people, but also taking down trees, taking down olive trees, hundreds of years old, like they constantly do in the West Bank. They always take down trees and crops, and they even kill sheep and herd for Palestinian farmers to take away their livelihood. And one of the Israelis here is thanking, Al-Qassam brigades for being keen on protecting them, on saving them. They were afraid for them. They were protecting them very well. And all this time, for the past 15 months, many of them were killed, this guy is saying. And they could have also been killed. And this didn't have to happen, according to them. Their prime minister could have had a deal. And this guy's saying his grandparents are from Turkey and from Morocco, and he doesn't understand why they even went to Israel. And he thinks that everyone should go back to where they came from. Then, of course, there was the ceremony with flags of the Palestinian resistance movements and sending signs, of course, the Palestinian resistance, and having participation from multiple armed groups. And then later on during this video, and let's hold on a second here. Again, sending a message to Israel here. The land distinguishes its people from the dual nationality foreigners. So we are the owners of the land, and these people are the foreigners. They are honoring their martyrs. And one of the resistance fighters was reciting the Quran as well in this ceremony. The Nukhba fighters as well here. Nukhba is the elite fighters alongside the shadow unit, those who are the ones who are wearing black. So the Nukhba are the elite, and the shadow unit, usually they are even more secretive, hardly anyone sees. And also the Palestinian resistance is having these events in multiple different parts of Gaza. And here we can see the image of this guy also kissing one of the Palestinian resistance fighters. And this is the big problem. This is the big problem. This was an explosion. These two are Israeli soldiers. They are Israeli soldiers who are not to be released in this knock. Hamas, the armed wing of Hamas, Al-Qassam brigades, brought them to see the ceremony of these people being released, saying, wow, I can't believe it that they are released. They're seeing him for the first time. They are supposed to be released in the later phases 2 and 3. Hamas brought them here. They're saying, please save us, to Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government. Netanyahu, it's enough. You killed us already. Continue with the deal. Return us home, please. Begging Benjamin Netanyahu. 500 days, they're saying, we were with them in captivity. We beg you, please, please, please return us back home. That's all that we want. No one expected this. And they're also saying, people of Israel, we want to be like them. And Hamas also sending the message here saying in Hebrew, Netanyahu, calm down. You're always saying, military pressure will bring back the prisoners. Chill. Signaling that only through negotiations you got them back, not through military pressure. And you could have had them back before. Hamas told you from day one, we did this because you didn't have an agreement with us. Today, 2 of the Israelis who were released spent over 10 years in Gaza. Israel neglected them. They didn't want to have any deal with the Palestinian resistance. And only through negotiations were they able to bring them back. And now they brought these two Israeli soldiers who are not to be released now. They're supposed to be released in the later phase. This was an insanely massive stunt from Hamas against Benjamin Netanyahu. The families are going to be seeing this. So, number one, there are a couple of things that happened here. Number one, this is the first confirmation from the Palestinian resistance that these two are alive. They do not declare if they're alive, they're not alive. They don't give free information. So this is an indication that they're alive. Number two, they're in good health. Number three, there are more of them, and they're begging to be released. What's Benjamin Netanyahu's position going to be like now? You have people looking at the ceremony of other Israeli prisoners of war being released. Benjamin Netanyahu, the whole state of Israel, and they're here saying that they're shocked as well, saying that Netanyahu, you killed us, you ended us. We're seeing our friends being released after 500 days. Negotiate and simply have a deal, release us, end this whole story. The military pressure is going to kill all of us. Please, as government, as prime minister, enough. You started with a deal, continue with the deal. The military pressure is not a solution, and it proved to be not a solution. And they're begging also the Israeli people to continue protesting so that they can apply pressure on the Israeli government so that they can release them back to their homes and their families. And that was the end of the video. An explosive message from Hamas. What is Netanyahu going to do? They're sending a message that they're alive and they're well. And they're sending a message to the families that, look, these people are alive and well, and it's only your government not releasing them. What are they going to do? What is Benjamin Netanyahu going to do? Benjamin Netanyahu is now saying that, no, we before phase two, we want to make sure that Hamas, they actually disarm. Hamas need to disarm. And then he's saying, you know what? Hamas can't be in Gaza as well. They need to leave. And then he's saying, do you know what? Hamas also, they can't have any role in Gaza whatsoever. Hamas simply need to be out of the equation completely. They should have nothing to do in Gaza or in the future of Gaza. Okay. Is that even realistic? Is that even realistic? No, it's not realistic. What's realistic? What's realistic is a formula that can be created where Hamas are no, authority lovers at the end of the day. They are people who call themselves the Islamic resistance movement. Resistance to an oppression, to a virus, to Zionism, to Israel, to oppression, occupation, genocide. That's why. So they said we can agree on someone governing Gaza so long as we're talking about national figures who care for the Palestinian people, and they basically can run the show when it comes to the civil matter. However, you can dream on about disarming the Palestinian resistance. We have our resistance. It's there to confront Israel. And so long as there is Israel and there is occupation, we're not gonna disarm. You can forget about that. In case we have a Palestinian state that is sovereign and like any other state is free to deal with anything that they want, have full rights, no besiege, no not being besieged, not having sanctions and everything imposed, fine, maybe we can of course have an army or whatever. But so long as these people are there, a country that's been killing us, it's not going to work. And they have an example. They're saying, look at the West Bank. Look at the West Bank. There's an authority that has been negotiating with Israel having peace negotiations for 30 years, and they achieve nothing. So how are we going to disarm? So if there's a formula, if there's this terminology that can be used in the ceasefire agreement on phase 2, which would say, and of course now even Witkoff is saying it's difficult, Hamas are tough negotiators. The Americans said before, Witkoff is saying it's going to be difficult because Israel wants that, but I'm not sure these people will accept. Well, of course they're not going to accept. The talk about disarming or dismantling should be with the genocide occupying entity, not with the victims, not the people under occupation who have been already expelled from their homes, not once, not twice, but 20 times, some of them. And if you want to return them anywhere, return them to occupied Palestine. Israel, give them citizenship. But some people are trying to save the situation. You see, there are maniacs in Israel led by Netanyahu. There are people who are slightly less maniac. So those who are slightly less maniac, Israel, the moderate Zionists, they're saying, listen, hold on a second. We will give you a safety net, Netanyahu. The opposition is sitting there, Lapid, Gantz, Lieberman, and Golan, Labor, and all of the other parties. They're saying, the return of those who are kidnapped is the most urgent task. You have the backing of the opposition. Their return is the moral thing to do. So what are they saying here? They're saying that don't worry about your government collapsing. Don't worry about your government collapsing, because the main thing for Netanyahu is his government collapsing. Smotrich told him, if you go into phase 2, you can forget about me. I'm out. Although there's an argument that he might be able to convince Smotrich with something else, because Smotrich, he continued with phase 1 on the basis of Netanyahu promised me to go back to phase 2. But his base, they're not all necessarily supportive of continuing the war. There was a poll in Israel that Smotrich's party, approximately 60% of them, were in favor of continuing the ceasefire. So he might be able to sell it to his base. So the opposition are coming and telling Netanyahu now, Netanyahu, don't worry. We will give you a safety net. You can continue to be the prime minister. We can agree on an election happening at some point in the future. And let's get these people back. And some of the argument of these people is let's get everyone back, and then we can think about what to do with Hamas. However, of course, Hamas, they didn't get into the ceasefire agreement before they had guarantees. And that's why the other option that is on the table, that is being published in Israel, apart from the talks, by the way, the babbling and the loud mouthness and the barking of Netanyahu and of Trump, the alternative that is being pushed in Israeli media is, no, we will have a delay. So we'll have an extension of phase 1. But that's problematic. Why is that problematic? Well, firstly, it indicates that Israel agreed to the demands of Hamas that if they don't reach an agreement on phase 2 during phase 1, that they will extend phase 1 without going back to the war, which is what Biden said in his statement when he published the ceasefire agreement that we are in now, and we could have been in over 8 months ago. So Israel adhered to the demands of Hamas, especially in that point. Then the mainstream media in Israel, they're not really necessarily talking. There's not a lot of talk about going back to the war, just empty talk. Of course, it's an option, not that it's not an option, not being naive here. But that's what they're saying in the Israeli media. What is the solution? Extending phase 1. What's going to happen if you extend phase 1? If you extend phase 1, because phase 2 has things that Israel doesn't really like. They're going to be completely out of the Philadelphia corridor till the last soldier. They're going to get out of the parameter completely. There's going to be a declaration that the war ended, and there's going to be settlement potentially for about 10 years. This is what Ron Dermer said who's Netanyahu's favorite little poodle now, and leading the negotiations of the ceasefire agreement on phase 2, because he put aside the head of the Mossad and the head of the Shin Bet, confirming that we're looking towards a ceasefire agreement or ending the war with potentially a long-term settlement. The problem, if they delay phase 1, is the fact that they want to get the benefits of phase 2. What are the benefits of phase 2? Well, from an Israeli perspective, it's getting the people back. Hamas are not stupid. They're keeping everyone up until everything is done. They will be keeping the soldiers and the commanders of the army that they kidnapped, the first people who they kidnapped on the 7th of October and were taken as prisoners of war to Gaza. They're going to keep them until the last second. Now, what will that message be to the Israeli public, and what will that message be to the Israeli soldiers fighting for Netanyahu now? The message is going to be, we are a country that neglects the people who die for it and sacrifice the most. And that's problematic. That's very problematic. There's already a lack of trust in the army, something that, started to take place after the judicial reform attempts of Netanyahu, but went on steroids after the 7th of October. The lies, the deception, everything. There's total lack of trust, of course, in the politicians too. But if Netanyahu doesn't bring back those who are fighting for Israel, you already have 60% non-compliance from reservists. You already have many people who are refusing conscription. You will have no luck whatsoever, despite every attempt to recruit, to bring the Orthodox Jews to the army. You're only left with those who are fooled by you. Those who are fooled by you. You know, the average 18, 19-year-old who was brainwashed from the early stages on this Zionism and this Israel and this land of the Jewish people and this we're God's chosen people and all of that. Especially, you know, the mental ones in the West Bank who were fighting towards the end in Gaza. Well, some of the, you know, only ones who were fighting really in Gaza. The main brigades who were fighting in Gaza up until the ceasefire agreement took place were from the Kfir brigade and Netzach Yehuda, these ultra-Orthodox, ultra-Zionist, nationalist from the squatting establishment in the West Bank fighting for Israel. But the opposition is giving him an option. They're telling him, listen, we will give you a backing. What are you waiting for? Now, you might ask yourself here, well, really, what is he waiting for then? The opposition is telling him, we will give you a safety net and your government will be protected. You won't step down as the prime minister. So why is he worried? He's worried because they will not necessarily give him up until the last day of his term, the date in 2026 where there should be elections. So most of them will probably give him a couple of months. I mean, to be fair, not a lot has been released apart from the fact that they're telling him, we will give you a safety net. But judging by what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing and how hesitant he is to accept this offer from the opposition and keep Smotrich in his government, is that he's now surrounded by yes men. Everyone is under his thumb. If he gets a safety net from the opposition, from people who already were in coalitions with him before and know him very well, and he's going to start having this internal criticism, he doesn't want problems. He's tried and tested in Israel. He is, yes, the longest serving Israeli PM, but he is the biggest political word that starts with a W. Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. He's been with everyone, and everyone knows him by now, and they're sick of him because of how much of a liar he is. He's full of deception. megalomaniac, egoistic, psychopathic, narcissistic behavior. Everyone hates him. Apart from, of course, his cult. His cult are still fine with him. So that's what's worrying Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, the key thing is, or the main question is, will Benjamin Netanyahu be able to reach this formula with Dermer and with Smotrich, where he can convince them that we will go on phase 2, but or potentially have only a fraction of the opposition to come in, not as a safety net, as a full member of the Israeli government up until the election date. So he wants to remain there up until the last second. That is the main key point from Benjamin Netanyahu. And when is that likely to happen? Like clarity or lack thereof? Well, Israel is delaying the release of the prisoners, of the Palestinians. Over 490, I believe, are about to be released, because, of course, the number of Israelis went up today, but the numbers of Palestinians too. They're saying we're going to release them later on. The Palestinian resistance is threatening them. If they don't, then that's an indication that Israel is going to start creating some problems, and they probably won't receive the bodies next Thursday or Saturday. However, the Americans are saying we're talking. The mediators are applying pressure. The position of the Arab states is against the ethnic cleansing. Even there's a slight retreat coming from the Trump administration. So it will be clearer by next week. When the next few days, if Israel doesn't release the Palestinians, it's going to be problematic. Towards the end of next week, and when it's towards the end of phase 1, it will be clearer if we are headed towards phase 2 indeed, or if there will be an extension of phase 1, or the unlikely, in my opinion, case of Israel going back to like a full-scale war. In my opinion, that is not very likely. It's an option, but is not very likely.